a year ago today, I was, in college doing some landscaping, and now here we are joining the USF Championship on the road to IndyCar. Yeah, no, I had no clue this was going to happen. It definitely took a little bit of time to build up some confidence, just never being on a track before. I'm going into this with an open mind, open heart. Any track I can get on, I'd love to get on. I've been to some pretty cool ones that, a year ago I'd be like, yeah, I'm never going to be able to race on there, but here we are today. Gotten to go to Road America, Lime Rock, Sonoma, Coda. My dad's business, X Cancer. He's a prostate cancer doctor that built up this company called X Cancer. And mainly what they do is kind of reach out to other centers around the country and, push on the idea of doing research.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Georgie's Stripping the Dipping podcast. I'm your host, F1 Black. 1 year ago, this week's guest, Thomas Nordquist, hadn't raced in a single-seater, and today he's on the road to Indy. Those of you that have listened to the show before will have heard of Skip Barber Racing School, and that's where Thomas went down for a 3-day course in their Formula Ford car. Now he's following in the footsteps of our former guest Myles Rowe in the USF 2000 series. As you'll hear, Thomas is an incredibly humble guy, but his story tells us that he has a special talent. So without further ado, let's get into it. Thomas, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm doing good. Just got back from doing some testing in Houston, getting ready for the season.
Superb. And where are you based at the moment then? If you're not in Houston now, where are you?
I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, just middle of the U.S.
That's a long old trek. Okay,
yeah, a little bit.
There are a few of those maps where they're like 1.5% of the US population live in this bit.
Yep.
And I guess you're there.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about how you got into motorsport, because is that normal for a kid from Nebraska? Like, yeah, I'm just going to go in and do a bit of single-seater. How did you get to where you are now?
I've always loved cars and racing. I built up a 1993 Toyota Supra just for kind of fun to drive around. But yeah, there's not really any go-karting places around me. If you go into racing here, it's 99% of the time dirt track, oval, or drag racing. Growing up, I didn't really have a chance to throw myself into a go-kart or anything. So I went with, basketball, football, kind of the main sports around here. But yeah, just a year ago, I got an opportunity to go down to Sebring, do some advanced coaching with Skip Barber, and absolutely fell in love with the sport. Loved being on the track, being in the cars. They gave me an opportunity to try out their Formula 4 cars in Coda about 2 months later. And from then I signed up for the series, did every race with them, and then found D-Force and hopped into USF Juniors.
So in my day job, I interview a lot of people for a job. And one of the things that I give them feedback on after is they talk about amazing things they've done, but they make it almost sound too easy. So like, you know what I mean, right? So
yeah.
First of all, let's start from the beginning. So you sort of said, I just, modded up a Toyota Supra 1993 car. So is your family into kind of souping up cars? Like, how did that come about in the first place?
Not really. Some of my extended family definitely is. My uncles and a couple of my cousins all do that, dirt track and drag racing. My family kind of went into the doctor route, which I was going to follow into, and just felt like it wasn't really for me. So yeah, I found that 93 Supra and just wanted to, kind of go crazy with it, build it up, see what I can do with it. Yeah, after that, I just wanted to keep going faster. Obviously in a safer way, but...
Yeah, I mean, plead the fifth. We're not going to imply anything about what happened before you got onto the racetrack. Because I noticed that your Twitter, or your Instagram handle has a 93 in it. So does that link to, is it paying homage to the car that you first started with?
Yeah, definitely.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm a bit older than you, I'll admit that. And the Toyota Supra was the thing to have in Gran Turismo, the old
Hmm.
game on the old PlayStation. So, was there something that attracted you to the Toyota Supra, or was it just about availability?
I mean, it's a beautiful car. It's
Yeah.
arguably one of like the easiest platforms to kind of, get those bigger horsepower numbers and stuff. So when I found one that was available and the price wasn't, through the roof, I felt like I just needed to jump on it, and here we are.
And here we are. So then you mentioned you went to Skip Barber School, and we love talking to people that have either been to Skip Barber or, we're good friends with Mike Ogren, who is an instructor down there. We had Celso Neto on the show, who has represented Skip Barber in other series, touring car. So you went down there. Did you have the belief that you were already like, oh, I'm great at driving, or that you were going to parlay that into racing in a series? Or what was in your mind when you went over to it's Alabama, isn't it, Skip Barber?
Went down to Sebring for,
Sebring, pardon me. Yeah,
yeah,
okay, fine. Yeah.
yeah, no, I had no clue this was going to happen. So I went down there for their 3-day racing school, and it was kind of just, you know, check something off a bucket list. But yeah, after the second day doing it, I couldn't get enough, so I signed up for the 2-day school. That was a week later, and went back down, and I loved it. I just wanted to, see how far my potential could take me and what else I could grow off of.
I'm always intrigued about motorsport because, you know, people like my wife or whoever, they might not follow motorsport. They think, oh, you're just sitting down, you're just turning the wheel, pressing some pedals. They can drive to the supermarket, whatever. But I honestly believe that there's a mix of perseverance and effort, but there's also a God given talent. So do you think something deep down inside you always had some degree of reflexes and kind of ability to place a car where you need to place it?
Yeah, I believe so. Like I said, growing up, I always loved racing, and I always felt like it's one of those just dream jobs that you want to have, that you want to, pursue. And unfortunately, I didn't get that chance to hop in a go kart or anything like that when I was younger. So, getting in there, I really felt like I just had to show myself, see what I could really do, and see what could come out of it.
A few of my friends have done track days in the UK, and they're not necessarily brilliant racers. They'll love that I said that, but they say that the instructors are always shouting at them like to push harder. Like brake later, really put your foot down at the right moments. When you were doing that kind of racing school the first time, did you find that you were really trying to push, or did you have to build up the confidence? How was your first time there?
It definitely took a little bit of time to build up some confidence, just never being on a track before, and then going into that, it was two different worlds. But yeah, after I kind of realized what I was doing, what I could do, I definitely, started pushing myself harder.
No, of course. So you said, well, I found D-Force Racing, and here we are today in the USF Juniors. So tell us a bit about the car, and also tell us a bit like how did you encounter D-Force Racing? I looked at their page; they look pretty successful. So you must have impressed them in some way.
Yeah. So with the Skip Barber series, we had a lot of races in conjunction with the USF Championship, and going towards the end of the season, I wanted to find what I could do next season where I could build this off of. And we talked to a couple of teams, and we just fell in love with Skip Bar or D Force and their whole, team. Everyone there, it was just immediately felt like a family. And then I think it was about a month later, went down to Houston to do our first test with them. My first test ever in a USF car, and it was great. I was putting down solid lap times, and they wanted me to keep on racing with them.
You seem like a really modest guy, and like it's coming through. But like, so I'm imagining because we've had Myles Rowe on the show a couple of years ago. USF is, if I'm not mistaken, a single seater.
Yep.
It's kind of like what I used to call the road to Indy in a way. Like, so tell us about the sort of speeds of the car. It's clearly nothing like driving a Toyota Supra. What does it feel like behind the wheel?
It's definitely a different experience to like anything else I've ever driven. The speeds are pretty quick. I mean, you're getting to, 130, 135. But it's a lot of aerodynamics. So you're taking turns pretty fast, and like my first time ever in that car, I was just kind of hoping that the car would stick, and you know, 99% of the time it would, and you just keep on pushing it, see where the grip level ends up, and go from there.
Yeah, so the 99% comment is quite funny because when we hear people talk about motorsport, they talk about the limit. Like you see the Ayrton Senna film, they say finding the limit. So tell us about that 1% because you talked about confidence. You've really got to push the car. So have you had a few occasions where you've gone slightly too far?
Yeah, there's a couple times. I mean, just the past 2 days down in Houston, just trying to get more confident with the car before the Winter Series starts. And yeah, there's definitely some times where you push it a little bit too far, and you want to be able to correct it. So you just kind of slide off, but nothing too crazy. So that's always good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, nothing too crazy. Hopefully, that's a good sign. No major damage, and I'm sure these cars aren't cheap. So, do you have to bring sponsorship, or is that like in a future series, perhaps? Like, how does that deal work?
So we're working on sponsors right now. My main one is just my dad's business, X Cancer. He's a prostate cancer doctor that built up this company called X Cancer, and mainly what they do is kind of reach out to other centers around the country, and you know push on the idea of doing research for the patients and stuff. And yeah, so he's the main sponsor. And then one of our friends, he owns a luxury bag brand, 3AM Luxury. And so he's kind of the second sponsor right now. Always on the lookout for new sponsors, always, trying to see where the next one can take me, and try and open as many doors as I can.
No, of course. And, you talked about X cancer. I think the statistic is that 1 in 2 of us will know someone that has experienced cancer. And, in the UK at the moment, one of our most famous Olympians has just sort of said that he's got terminal cancer. It was prostate cancer. So it's a really important cause. And it's really, heartwarming to hear that that's the sort of enterprise that your dad's in and in research. So, I mean, you talk about winter series coming up. So, what sort of tracks are you looking at? You just got back from Houston. Where does that winter series take place? Is that Sebring?
Yeah, so there's a couple tests and races in Sebring. I'll be in Alabama in 2 weeks for just some more testing, and then Miami Homestead for a couple races.
Miami Homestead. Now, I don't know if my brain's making that up, but like I used to love IndyCar, and I'm old enough to remember the split. Has IndyCar run at my Miami Homestead, but like 20 years ago or something, or did I just dream that? I don't know.
Um,
Maybe you wouldn't remember. You were zero, but it's fine. Have you got any tracks that you're like, my dream is to race on track X? You just mentioned that you did Formula Ford at COTA, so I mean, how much better could it get? But like, any tracks you'd love to go on?
I'm going into this with an open mind, open heart. Any track I can get on, I'd love to get on. I've been to some pretty cool ones that, a year ago I'd be like, yeah, I'm never going to be able to race on there, but here we are today. Gotten to go to Road America, Lime Rock, Sonoma, like you said, Coda. Yeah, and it would be cool to get to a couple of them overseas. Um, but yeah, we'll see where this takes me.
It's really interesting that you talked at the beginning about maybe what the motorsport that was more prevalent where you live is could be drag racing, but certainly not kind of go karting into single seaters. All the tracks, or a lot of the tracks you mentioned there, are, I guess you'd call them road courses. So is that where you see your specialism in terms of your driving style and where you want to go, or ovals are also fun for you as well?
I've not done an oval yet. I look forward to doing one. But yeah, so far I think, road courses are kind of my cup of tea.
There you go. You're segmenting it, the cup of tea for the British audience. Amazing. Yeah, you're going to get some British sponsors. So in that case, sort of, do you have any aspirations about? I mean, I don't know why put a limit on it, but where you'd ideally like to go and race in terms of a series. You've got USF Juniors. You were looking at the Winter Series, but any dreams of where you'd love to go?
Just love to build up the USF ladder, see how far that'll take me. If it gets me into any Indy NXT or IndyCar, that'd be more than fantastic. But yeah, it's kind of just playing it by year and seeing how far I can go.
I'd really love, and I'd really appreciate and conscious of your time, really love to hear a bit about what you found most difficult. Because that's sort of not normally when we talk to guests, said this would be better than fantastic. And I can imagine it is amazing to be behind the wheel and the kind of rapid growth you've had. But as you grow up through different series, or you suddenly, okay, I'm going to do USF Junior, you're there at D-Force Racing. What is, what have you found the most difficult about driving the car?
I'd have to say just kind of like how late I got into the game because I'm 20 now. Most of the guys I'm going up against right now, they've been doing go karts or whatever since 5, 6 years old. So it's definitely a steeper progression that I have to make in a shorter amount of time than some of these other guys. So yeah, just kind of really putting everything I have into it while also, still looking for sponsors, still doing college and stuff. And so that's been a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's interesting. You said you're at college, so are you studying something related? Is it on the business side or the engineering side? Like, what are you looking to study?
Right now, I'm just doing business administration,
Hmm.
kind of a backup degree.
Yeah, but you'd say that, but it's really interesting because a lot of people that are in motorsport, including drivers, like they've studied the business side, and you talk about getting sponsorship and where you might end up. Like it seems that there's a lot of relevance as well. So who knows? We could see Thomas Nordquist, the kind of business mogul and entrepreneur and driver at the same time, which is a good dream.
Yeah.
Speaking of dreams, do you have any sort of drivers that you grew up idolizing, or that perhaps you'd love to meet as part of what you're doing?
Not a ton, really. I wasn't kind of too focused on racing growing up my whole life. It was mostly just, you see it on TV and, watch it for a couple hours and then just go on with your day. But I've definitely, grown fond of a couple of the F1 drivers. Of course, Max Verstappen's driving ability is just mind boggling. And, a couple of the Indy drivers. Um, so yeah, I think it's really cool to see yourself racing in the same paddocks as a couple of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Following their footsteps, and Max Verstappen at Kota. He's shown everyone how it should be done. So maybe you're giving colleagues a bit more space on the exit. I don't know. In fact, it would be interesting to ask you, because single seater racing, clearly you can't have the level of contact that you would have in NASCAR saloon car racing. But the rules of engagement seem to me to be different in North America versus in Formula One. Formula One, maybe the rules have changed in the last few years. So when you're driving, if you're personally driving, you're trying to make an overtake. If you're on the outside, do you expect your competitor or rival to leave you space, or do you think, I'm going to back out because I don't want to be out on the grass? What's your view on that? I know it's different each time, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of take it, being new to the sport and everything. I kind of try and read the other drivers, and if I'm going into a overtake like that, and I know that the guy's a respectful driver, I'll stay in it and see what happens. But there have been a couple of times where I've had to back out and rethink with the where I'll make the overtake.
It's interesting because you seem to be a very diplomatic guy. It's like, if they're a respectful driver, which implies that maybe there are a few drivers out there that perhaps less than respectful. Do you think part of racing is making people think you won't back out? Like, like if you look at Max Verstappen in Formula One, I would argue part of his success, and it's probably the same as Ayrton Senna 30, 40 years ago, is people probably will give him a bit of space because they think, oof, Max isn't going to give me that space on the exit. So do you sometimes think, I've got to show that I'm not a pushover, or do you think there is some beauty in the respect between drivers as they're trying to pass one another?
I definitely think it is a pretty big mental game that you kind of have to show the other drivers There's been a couple races where me and one other guy will go into turn one at Road America, for example. We'd go in side by side, and it was pretty much see who will back out later and go from there.
Is there anywhere that we can see footage of you racing? Our listeners can kind of see, oh yeah, USF Junior or earlier footage of you behind the wheel.
I try and post as much as I can on my Instagram and TikTok. Um, I know the USF Championship streams all their races, so that would be on the either the app or the website. Yeah, that's pretty much all the footage.
So that is, I'm looking at it, Thomas Nordquist 93 on
Hmm.
Instagram. I'm far too old to be on TikTok, but I'm sure people can find you because if they get to the Instagram, they can find your link tree, and it says TikTok dash make your day. Is that like a name, or is that just all TikToks say that? I don't know. Maybe it
I
is.
think that's just all TikToks. I'm not 100% sure, but
I'm so out of touch. I'm that uncle that's like, help me use my phone. Yeah, I can see that you're at Nordquist Racing on TikTok.
yep.
So we could follow your exploits. So what's the next meeting or the next race that you're going to be competing in?
Next race will be Sebring for the Winter Series. Next testing will be at Barber Motorsports down in Alabama.
Okay. And do you hold hope for the series ahead? Like if you've got an objective, I'm going to win a race, I'm going to win the series, or are you just seeing it as it goes?
Yeah, I mean, those are always the goals, is to at least get a podium. Last year I managed to claw out two podiums throughout the year, which for the first year ever racing, I count that as a win. Next season, yeah, I definitely want to try and secure a podium, finish top five overall. So those are definitely the two big goals right now.
And that's incredible. I mean, who would you say the most famous or notorious driver that you've lined up against is? Are there people that you lined up against like more recently, that have then advanced up to the next level? Any names that we might have heard of, or anyone you tip for success other than yourself?
Oliver Weldon, he's the one that won the series last year. Yeah, he was definitely one to race against. Very, very fast. Dean Lambros, he was leading the championship for probably 80% of the season. Very quick kid. He does a lot of legend car racing and spec Miata racing, stuff like that.
Oliver Weldon. I need to look this guy up. I'm sure, like, presumably his dad was Dan Weldon, or maybe it's completely
Yep.
unrelated. Who knows? Okay, right. So we're claiming that guy's British, even though he's probably spent all of his life in the US. We're going to claim that guy. Brilliant. Okay, well, look, it's been really, really lovely to meet you. Is there kind of a message you'd like to leave our listeners? Anything like the sum of your experiences getting into motorsport or in life, where you're like, this is the sort of wisdom or the message that I tend to share to people. What would you like to leave with us?
I'd say just, take any open door that comes to you, and because you never really know where it'll lead you. Like I said, like a year ago today, I was, in college doing some landscaping, and now here we are joining the USF Championship on the road to IndyCar.
That's incredible. And hopefully, in the last 20 odd minutes, we've explained why it's also exceptional and not, if you're landscaping at college at the moment, don't expect to end up in USF juniors next year, but know it's possible. We ask all of our guests one final question, which I hope you'll forgive us. We asked Mario Andretti this. The setup is I presume that you enjoy eating pizza occasionally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Of course, right? Silly question. Sometimes people haven't. Right. Okay. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever had pineapple on pizza. Uh, wouldn't be opposed to trying it, but it's definitely not a go-to for me.
Okay. So me and Georgie have a bit of a competition. I'm a no. She's a yes. I'm going to count you as a no, even though you were very open-minded and tolerant. But that's not how I roll. I'm very anti. So, okay, Thomas, it's been lovely to have you on the show today. We'll be following your exploits in the Winter Series with great interest. particularly down in Sebring. And yeah, we wish you every luck. And who knows, if 1 year ago you were landscaping at college, now you're in USF Junior, who knows where you're going to be next year.
Exactly. Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Okay, guys, if you love this episode, please give us a thumbs up or a 5-star review wherever you're listening. Give us a comment. Wish Thomas luck. You can follow him at Thomas Nordquist 93 on Instagram, Nordquist Racing on TikTok. Clearly, I'm too old to be on TikTok. But until next time, I've been F1 Blag. This has been Georgie Stripping the Dipping. Good night.